Commission and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dussault, Ms. Schwarz,
Here.
Mr. Runge,
Present.
Mr. Downey, and Chairman Zimmerman.
Here. Okay, first item before we get into the minutes is the fact that we may have to switch the agenda around this morning in order to accommodate one of our members who has a conflict and has to leave early.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you coming. That's the important thing.
I want to be here.
I understand. The approval of the minutes of our June 18th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? I saw something in here somewhere, and it was a typo more than anything else.
I think that's what mine was the last time I looked at it.
Where is it? Should have marked it,
I didn't see anything.
but I didn't. Somewhere in here. Oh, here it is. On page 5 at the bottom, Mr. Zimmer seconded the motion, and it passed unanimously. So apparently we have a new member who has a name similar to mine.
Oh, good. A relative.
Yes, yes. So if we could correct that, that's the only thing that I saw. And I know it doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but, you know, it's kind of important to me. Anyway, public comment. You're the only member of the public today, so.
I have no comment.
No comment.
Just observe.
You're just here to wish us good cheer.
That's correct.
Good.
Make sure we stay in the tree sit.
Yeah, well, that's good. That, and we commend you on the letters that the city is sending out on behalf of all the ratepayers, so we appreciate that. That's just a personal comment. Okay.
Did somebody make a motion to approve?
Let's do new business first, if we could, only because of the application. I know it won't take that much time.
Chairman, I think you need to vote on your minutes.
Did you do the
Oh, no,
approval
that's
of the
right.
minutes?
Yes, you're
You
right.
made the correction.
Yeah, you made the correction, so let's vote on the approval of our minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Great. The minutes are approved as amended. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody keeping me honest today. Okay, next item, let's do new business first, just so we know we have that finished. The first item is the approval of the tree dedication applicant from Mrs. Greta Genovese. And are there any questions on the application? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll
So
make a-
moved.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Let me sign it and pass it on to the clerk. We'll probably have the most impactful part of our meeting accomplished. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. It's unusual when we have 2 empty seats there. That's interesting. Next item, and again, we want to cover this while you're here also, is the summer meeting schedule. In the past, we've had many instances where, based on the extent of activity to come before the board and summer schedules of people on vacation, et cetera, has led us to abbreviate the meetings scheduled during the summertime. And so we're up at the point where we have an August meeting coming up, and just wonder what the commission's ideas are on potentially canceling that meeting.
I don't have to cancel.
No, I'll be here.
Yeah. As far as I know, I don't have to cancel.
Well, my point is,
Do you want to not have the meeting?
well, I don't know of any subject that is on the horizon that is that important and or timely. I guess that's the whole point. So it does allow for people to have the month of August where they might be gone or have a conflict. And, you know, again, this morning we have
Today actually would have been the better one to not do. But we
for
didn't,
you.
yeah, well, yeah, that's
because
the way
of
it worked out,
conflict,
yeah. Oh,
Of
well.
course, it's hard to know that
Yeah, it
ahead of
is.
time.
So if you want to take August off then?
It's just an opportunity for
Okay.
Jim to have another meeting to attend instead of ours. Again, I don't know of anything in the area of, our Centennial Tree Planting Project. That's an ongoing thing. That's kind of evolving. And we do need input from certain people to help us identify projects. Remember, we kind of talked a long time last month about that. So anyway, just a thought. I'm going to be here also, as far as I know, but, we do have problems with other members attending.
Yeah. So do you want me to make a motion to not have the meeting in August? I mean, it
If-
doesn't matter to
if-
me. I will.
If you would like.
And I'll take August off. I will make a motion not to have the meeting August 20th, 2015.
There's
And that'll be our
Pardon.
summer vacation or summer hiatus.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
There is a second. Any discussion?
there is a possibility due to projects that I will be out of Vero Beach in September and possibly October, but we'll know well in advance.
Okay, great. And we'll try and encourage our members absent today of the importance. And hopefully we'll get some applicants to help fill up the roster, which will help us to be able to have enough members for a meeting and move forward. So motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. So we will cancel the August meeting and hopefully look forward to everyone attending in September, if at all possible. And Madam Clerk, maybe if you would please send out a memo, an email after this meeting to all the members telling them about the August meeting and the fact that we certainly appreciate everyone trying to make meetings in order to have a full quotient of people to discuss items, because it makes it difficult not to. Okay, anything else under new business that isn't agendized? Okay, let's move to old business, and is there anything new to report or discuss on the Centennial Tree Planting Project?
From reading the meeting notes, because I left early last meeting, Nanette said that it was very difficult to find a spot to do, say, a canopy like on Victory Boulevard. Did you mention something before? I started looking around, and I was wondering if 23rd Street, where they're doing the new bridge, would be conducive to it. I've said that previous, and I'm not sure. There are overhead lines on the other side of the road, but not like on the community church side road.
I've been looking, and there are numerous locations
Okay.
within the city, and one of the suggestions might be that as opposed to using boundaries of right-of-ways, that the thought process might be that you construct a boulevard. There are right-of-ways within the city which are extremely wide, that are on residential streets, that are heavily trafficked thoroughfares, where one could construct median islands allowing for ingress and egress from side streets, coming nowhere near to overhead cables, and really present a project to mark a 100-year anniversary.
So like a focused thing.
Well, the focus I've come to understand is that you never think inside a box.
Right.
You look at every possible angle, every facet that's possible, and you usually come up with a solution. So I don't want to constrain it to that we're going to plant the sides of streets.
Thinking along that line, and I understand the basis of your statement and the fact that, we may get someone who comes up with an interesting idea. I wonder if it would be worthwhile, and I make this suggestion, to make a presentation to City Council about this project, state that we are looking for some thinking outside the box, and the fact that members of city council, the audience in attendance, or someone in the TV audience on a revisitation of watching the city council meeting has some ideas that they could bring back to us. That's something that we haven't thought about. That answers two things. One, we may get lucky and somebody may come up with a great idea. And two, down the road, when we propose whatever we do propose, it kind of softens we never had a chance to comment,
Right.
or
Exactly.
Yes.
I had a
Right.
better idea
Yes.
and I didn't have a chance to present it.
Yes.
Right. You know,
So
there's some old sayings that carry great wisdom, and one is in a multitude of counsel, there's great wisdom. And the more you think about a project like this, the further in advance you start approaching the community about a project like this, the greater its success. I know that we would do projects in my previous line of work, and these would be 10-year projects, and we would start telling the community 2 years in advance what we were planning, so that someone on the street that's impacted by the project could come to us 2 years in advance and say, I have a concern.
Right.
Well, that's why I'm thinking
Yeah, it
that,
does make sense.
this is one way to focus some attention on it. Maybe there's something in that city council agenda that sparks the press to cover the meeting, and if so, it would mean that we'd have a little more coverage of the opportunity and the potential for some
Couldn't agree more.
smart thinking. So
Right.
maybe we could think about doing that maybe in August sometime or September.
I would be happy to represent the tree commission.
Well,
City council.
I'd be happy to have. I think the chairman should make the presentation, but be glad to have you come along and speak along
Sure.
also. So, if that's meets with everyone's approval, and since there's
does.
only three of us today, it makes
No,
it
it's a
easier.
good idea, and plus, not every one of us can figure every neighborhood. People that each live in each of their neighborhoods have a certain agenda they want for that neighborhood. Maybe we don't know what all those agendas are. That's a
Yeah.
good. It is. It's a good idea.
Well, remember, we talked with staff about taking a look at aerials to try to know within the city limits areas that were devoid of tree cover. And she stated at that last meeting that she had already done that,
Yeah.
and that she really found it was difficult to come up with areas that didn't have good tree cover that would allow tree cover, because that's the other part of the equation. As was stated, it's got to be an area that allows trees to be added, and that's one of the, even in a boulevard, then you're really restricted as to the kinds of trees and size that you can put in that boulevard area, unless it's an awful large boulevard, and because of the restrictions that the traffic code presents on adding trees. From a liability point of view, that's the biggest factor, if nothing else. Any ideas, Jim?
Yeah, there are some projects or plans.
Your secretary's gonna.
Yeah, there are projects and plans that are on the drawing board. I haven't thought about, put them in medians and stuff. But, for example, Cardinal Drive, there is this elaborate plan to put a median down the center of Cardinal Drive and allow for parking. So you would have parking on the curbside as well as in the center of the street. And that, you're talking about someplace wide.
Well, and that is the perfect opportunity to dovetail two projects together.
Yeah.
Where the city has already addressed an area where they're going to be doing a substantial redesign of a right-of-way, and including the landscape that would be required in a project of that scope as part of a centennial tree project.
Yeah.
And that's highly visible.
It is very highly visible. And there may be other plans. That's the one that just comes to mind because we've been talking about parking issues. And
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have to tell you, I in my own mind's eye, I was focused more on the mainland than I was on the Barrier Island,
Me too.
and that's not fair either,
No.
because
No.
most of our tree planting projects have been
Over here.
on the mainland. They have not been on the Barrier Island.
That's probably where Nanette has been looking, because that's where the trees really are, is on the mainland. If you look up and down our boulevards,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's
So that's a good approach.
When you do a project on the beach, you start narrowing the palette of trees that you can use, because if you plant oaks in proximity to the dune line, they become very windswept. So the tree that goes in perfect from the nursery, then over a period of 20 years is one-sided. And so you change your project to fit the environment.
right.
Yeah, and I don't know, as a follow-up to your statement, I don't know that we were necessarily married to oaks at all,
No.
but your
Right.
point's well taken. That
Right.
we've got to adapt, and that's what we've done when we've done tree plantings on the barrier island. We've tried to make them accommodate the environment. In fact, you have to, as said,
Right.
otherwise.
Well, there are a lot of oaks on the barrier
Yeah.
islands.
Yeah.
But they all grow.
That's true.
Yeah.
The wind does
Yeah.
shape.
If you look at where I live in Seagrove, the oak hammock is right along A1A and closer, again, away from, and even those, if you look at some of the older ones, they've been moved pretty directly as far as their shape and transformation into something. It's almost like they're running away from the ocean.
Which really isn't all bad. I mean, it is
No.
sort of part of nature that reflects
Exactly.
that. So,
Exactly.
but anyway, I just throw that out.
Well,
And there
that's
may
great.
be other projects that Public Works has that are on the drawing boards. We just never been able to afford to do them, and there just hasn't been an emphasis placed on those. And that's just one that happens to come to mind.
Well, and again, we do have money in the funds for tree planting that have been generated by fines and so forth.
Right.
And that may be a contribution from the city looking towards the celebration of the anniversary would be something that allowed us to do something that was really meaningful, not just in
Right.
planting, but in the scope and transformation of the project itself.
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing I just want to keep in mind is that at one time they said the world was flat and you couldn't sail around it. Everybody said it was impossible, and they were proved wrong.
Just a couple years ago.
Just
Yeah.
a couple of years ago.
That's been pretty well disproven.
Yeah. But it's the whole thought process.
Well, it's
Right,
the
that's true.
same thing
It
as
is
starting off with the Pluto mission and then finding out later that year that it's not a major planet. After you've launched
8 billion.
one heck of a expensive probe that took 9.5 years to accomplish, and it's just great that it's successful, because it sure wouldn't have been fun if it wasn't for the people who proposed it and funded it. Anyway,
True.
all good thoughts, and we'll take a look at city council schedule here over the next. Maybe September is better. There's more people back. We're beyond the summer hiatus when people in the community are on vacation too, because school's back in session. And maybe we ought to focus on September as and again, we could do this more than once, only to try and get. And we can also. I can talk to Marcia about going on. Buzz TV from a TV point of view, and the radio stations with the idea of just talking about the project and that we're looking for ideas and inspiration.
Okay. I'll put that out too for the radio stations.
Good.
Yeah, and on our website, the city's website,
Yeah, sure.
we should do that.
Yeah. Well, and what we can do is carry on the website as a continuation of whatever the presentation is
Yeah.
with city council,
Good idea, Chris.
Okay, if that's the extent of comment on the Centennial Project, next item under old business is the tree protection ordinance and mitigation, and we know that neither one of our staff people who would have information of what's happening there are with us this morning, and I think, pardon?
Gail, on her note there, left that she is still working on that.
Oh,
And
Oh,
I did
okay.
a bunch of research that I emailed to
yes.
Rita.
Yeah,
I tried to pick out ones that are maybe the size of Vero Beach.
yeah.
Hopefully it was
I-
a little
I-
bit helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the old, well, and even the people you talked to commiserated with you on
No
on
question.
the impact
Yeah.
of
What do we-
finding people and all the rest of it. And that is a very difficult area. As I said, working in code enforcement, I can assure you it gets pretty hairy at times. Anyway,
And the one, I think it was from Sarasota. I sent exactly what they sent of everything they crossed out and tried to change theirs to even behoove what they could do.
yeah.
So-
It's not an easy. I mean, the real answer is to go full blown, have the training, certify people who are doing tree trimming, and then at least you've got the professional people who ought to know what's going on and can be held accountable. But that's a major undertaking.
It is. And there's two projects in the community, and I'm hoping that I'm going to state the right one. Now, we all know that the one that was out the trees out at the, what is it? Not the bank, the credit union. Okay. How butchered those were. Okay, now over on 23rd Street, I guess Community Church bought the property from an old 2-story apartment building. And they pruned all of the trees, and I want to say that's the proper pruning. I mean, I could do it, take pictures of it and say this is, something that they did do right and something that here's what happens when you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just noticed it in the neighborhood, and I'm like, wow, they did a good job on those.
Well, and I'm sure the reason for it was there was a professional engineer who was managing the project, or a firm.
Okay.
So they were aware, and it's the awareness. That's the big thing. Our biggest problems tend to be, and I don't want to speak for staff, but my guess, the biggest problems would be the individual homeowners and what they do, because that's where you have less knowledge and less impact of, the fact, there are rules about that. It's just an area that's not well publicized, unfortunately.
Just related to but not attached to is the fertilizer ordinance. I can assure you that inside Indian River County, City of Vero Beach, other municipalities, there are persons who are working outside of the blackout zone. But the only people that can enforce that are code enforcement. And so you got how many code enforcement people watching?
Well,
over?
the county has a person who is supposed to be following up on that, more from an education point of view.
Right.
But and it's education because people get concerned about it. And again, people could be spraying or putting down material for weed control, which is not really part of the fertilizer prohibition, as I understand.
No, it is not. But when you can see a bag of fertilizer that's clearly labeled going,
well, it's the old story. That's why code enforcement, both in the city and the county, works on a confidentiality basis. You call up and tell them that there's a problem. They follow up with it, and when the person asks, well, who complained about
It's
this? Well, we're
confidential.
sorry, it was an anonymous complaint.
I guess what I'm saying is the enforcement of the fertilizer ban would be as difficult as the enforcement
Yes.
of tree
Yeah.
trimming ban
Okay.
because of limited staff and available
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Okay, we can't do much with the tree protection ordinance because we don't have the input. Excuse me. Are there any other items under old business that have not been agendized that need attention that we're not addressing? Okay. Treasurer's report, we have nobody to accomplish that.
She said
Chair-
there was no changes to the
I'm,
accounts.
I'm sorry?
She said there was no changes to the account since the last meeting.
Okay. Then I guess we do have a report. And while we're talking about that, and I'm sure you'll do it anyway, but I'll just say it into the minutes that Mr. Downey and Mrs. DeSalt had asked for and have excused absences for today's meeting, just as a housekeeping situation. I don't know what we're going to do about Gail and her compatriot. I don't know if they get excused absences or not since they're staff.
I'm not going to.
We won't worry about that.
When we know, let's not worry about that.
Okay, I have nothing under chairman's matters. Anything under members' matters?
No.
Okay, and the last item there is the next meeting, and we have canceled that meeting. So our next meeting would be in September, and there's going to be an email coming out reminding everyone of the cancellation and focusing attention on that September meeting. So unless there's anything else to come before us today, the chair would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Thank you. We are adjourned.